The definition of monster, as described by the dictionary, is something that an imaginary creature that is large, frightening, and ugly. We fit the bill by just being ugly, but a lot of other creatures, such as lions, tigers, bears, oh my, Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, werewolves, ugh, they would all be considered monsters, and more or less that makes sense, specifically for werewolves. But let's try to dumb it down a little bit to an imaginary creature. Then you open the door to things such as nymphs, spirits, trees that have like moving arms, unicorns, your love life, things that don't exist. And then, if you really think about it, what would be an imaginary creature? It would be something made up, such as my voice right now. Maybe I'm an AI, but an AI. Think about it. What is the true definition of a monster by those standards? What would you think would be the most true to form monster? And it's very subjective. You can think of a troll, or those are sometimes considered giant, ugly, and scary. Giants, cyclops. But let's try to make it a bit more fitting. How about we insert some, instead of unnatural or made up, think of something like something that goes against, say, our morals. Then you open the door for Ted Bundy and serial killers and mass murderers, crazy people. Then we can move into things that go against society. That would be religious groups, not to offend anyone, but it would be religious groups or things that go against each other, contradictory statements, a juxtaposition. What would make, by those standards, a true monster? Well, it certainly wouldn't be what I would create. I write a lot of monsters, hence why I'm using this to document what I think a monster should be. And if you truly think about it, then a monster, by my definition of something that goes against societal norms and morals, could be anything because of the way those are set up. Morals aren't things you're born with, they're things that the society around you would create. So there's a lovely quote that I can't remember who said it, but it says that every crime has a motive. But if people start randomly harming and killing each other in the streets, then it's not an issue with the police. It's an issue with society. Society creates the moral standards. So what would be considered a monster by that point? It would be, to use Fahrenheit as an example, Guy Montag would be a monster. Clarice would be a monster. Percy Jackson in the Percy Jackson series is a monster. People with ADHD are monsters. They go against societal norms. And that's what is really painful. If you get down to it, a monster is something that no one else wants. It is something that goes against what other people like. And that, in and of itself, is the true monster, really. Society is going against itself. Society is going against the people that create it. People trying to better it. Society is a monster just as it defines what a monster is. And I'm getting at all this just to say that if you are trying to put the label of monster or creating a monster in any sense in a story or from the perspective of an actor or an actress, then to truly understand what a monster should be when creating it, then think about the world that it's in. Like ghosts in a normal setting, in a place where ghosts should always exist. Like Risen from Ashes, the webtoon where ghosts are just a natural part of society. They, in essence, aren't monsters until they defect from what they are societally meant to do. Similarly, entrepreneurs in our world are going against big corporations. They would be considered monsters. And big corporations, in tandem with that, would also be monsters because they're going against what society would want. Every type of monster, anything you could think of, could technically be a monster. It goes against the society or a society in general. And through that set of morals, the definition of monster that we use, the imaginary thing that is big, ugly, and scary, doesn't matter anymore. That idea of something big, ugly, and scary is something unusual, unnatural, imaginary. It goes against society in general. So the definition of monster is in itself a monster, really. Jeez, I know this sounds a bit stupid. So let's slow it down. Think of my thought process. Monster, by definition, the word monster is a monster because it in and of itself is a word to describe something that goes against society. Because if you think about it, society is what creates the morals that dictate what a monster is. And using that, we can create a real monster in a world that either doesn't have one or has an abundance of what the reader would think is a monster, but the society around it doesn't. I'm going to go back to Guy Montag from Fahrenheit 451 as an example. His society is dystopian. And, spoiler alert, he is keeping books. And books in that society are burned because they are going against the apathy of the masses. He is a monster because he's going against that. And using that definition of something that goes against society, Guy Montag can accurately be compared to the Black Bloods in the Black Blood Brothers, or Father from Fullmetal Alchemist, the homunculi from Fullmetal Alchemist, All for One, Tomoru Shigaraki. Everything you can think of, even a werewolf, compared to a simple guy like Guy Montag, or say Percy Jackson. You can compare a normal human, to a giant monster, and they would both be the same in a sense that they are monsters. They go against the society. Incoherent ramblings aside, the definition of monster and the new definition I just spoke of something that goes against society, in reality, contradict each other in such a way that it is difficult to create a real monster when writing, because you're going by the monster of what you look at and then that definition, and you create something that really shouldn't exist, like feasibly in the story. Like if I were to create a monster based on Ted Bundy using that definition, it would be a scary, monstrous, giant sociopath similar to Jason Voorhees, or anyone really. It just goes against each other. It's why it's so hard to think about, because fitting what it would be like in our world with that definition contradict each other, in that just in essence complicates creating the monster. So when you're trying to create a monster if you want to use that definition, don't use the society as a basis for how that monster was created, or as for the monster. And if you do want to use the society for the monster, then don't use the definition of monster in Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine that's going to pop up. It should be the same definition using the same website. You will need to use the society and build a character around that is influenced by the society, both in and around. You would need to create something that contradicts the society around it, and it doesn't have to be monstrous, like creepy looking or anything, but fitting the bill for what you want your villain or your monster to be by using the society around it, because it contradicts the society that it's in, is a great way, in my opinion, to create a compelling thing that could fit feasibly anywhere, really. And the point I'm getting at in this video, just a rambling video, terrible lighting and everything, is to project my thoughts outward as common as from my perspective to yours. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to do anything. You just listen to me ramble for like 10, 11, 12 minutes. And that's fine. I don't really care if you don't get my views. I'm free to explain things in the comments because I'm kind of bad at talking. But just to my main takeaway point before I end this video is to build the perfect monster, you must use the society around it to affect the character or creature itself, and not use the definition or uses of other monsters around you. And if you want to learn more things about how I think or my perspective on writing, then you can like the video, subscribe. Sure, you can share it with a friend. Nobody really does that anymore. And follow my Patreon, which will be in the link in the description, and a Discord server that I'm in that I made in the link in the description. Thank you for listening to me ramble again, and I'll make another video whenever I can, and I'll see you in that video. Goodbye.